Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to Sovereign Gaming. So today we are returning back to the world of SimCity where we are continuing on in our create a world build journey here. And today we are actually going to start building out some urban neighborhoods. And today's urban neighborhood is going to be quite an interesting one, only because the focus is going to be all on building out some land for the stadium and also for the hospital as well. You see, when it comes to the stadium, it is going to be a focal piece. It'll be one of those focal points within the city. And the way that it really turned out at the end, I quite liked it. I felt that it conveyed what it needed to convey. And overall, I am very happy with the way that the stadium and the hospital layouts turned out for SimCity. Now, the reason why that I really wanted to separate these two lots essentially into their own neighborhoods is because they just kind of feel that way. With the stadium, it's a little more of a larger scale project. There's quite a bit of parking around that I end up surrounding the stadium with. And I really wanted it to kind of act as its own separate neighborhood that's a little segregated from the rest of the downtown core. Like you actually have to want to be in the area in order to get there. Like you really wouldn't accidentally stroll upon the stadium. You actually have to put some effort into doing that. And I also wanted the stadium's parking to just kind of give more of that urban feel within the downtown core itself. When we leave the downtown core, there's going to be barely any parking props that I use at all. So I've got to kind of get it out of my system while I still can. The same thing can sort of be said for the hospital. However, with the hospital, what I plan on doing when I actually get to the lot build itself is I plan on surrounding it with some more trees and all that. Granted, it is an urban hospital and we see those all over the world where hospitals are located in the middle of cities, and that's really what I wanted to do here. However, I also wanted to take into consideration that hospitals require some sort of a quieter location. Like they don't want to be in the middle of a collection of bars and nightclubs and whatnot. And that's kind of what the future parts of the downtown core was going to do, is it was going to feature nightclubs and stuff. So I wanted to remove the hospital from that, and I really wanted the hospital to be its own thing and its own focal point or point of interest within the city. Another reason why I wanted the stadium to be located just outside or just on some land adjacent to the downtown core is that I also want it to serve as, I mentioned before, a focal point, but also a focal point from a skyline perspective. Like it could be a view. I don't know how this actually will turn out, but it could be a view that one uses to really highlight the city skyline, and having the stadium just kind of sit a little lower in front of everything while the taller buildings are just right behind it would be a really nice view to have, I would think. When it comes to the hospital, on the other hand, like that is obviously not going to be a focal point for a city skyline. It might be at the end of the day. Like I still have to export the world and boot it up in the game in order to kind of find out how each of the structures read. However, the thing with the hospital is that I just didn't want it to be buried and suffocated by the buildings surrounding it, since all of the hospital buildings are really shorter in my opinion, and even though I'm likely going to place it on a foundation, it's still a pretty short and wide building essentially. And I didn't want it drowned out by the other buildings in the downtown core, so I really wanted to separate it and kind of give it its own little neighborhood. After all, it does need to be accessible as well, so the other idea here is just that putting it off the main boulevard, one of the main boulevards going north and south, would make it a little more easier for cars to actually get to. It has access to the rest of the city, and it also adds in a little more intrigue to the landmassing of the downtown core as well. I decided to add in a little bit of waterwork surrounding the area because I don't want to extend the downtown any further west. I think I might have mentioned it in a previous video where I was really considering actually extending the downtown core grid. And when I had started up the Create a World tool, I pretty much immediately decided not to. I feel like it would have just taken up too much space. It would have been too much of a focus on the downtown urban core, whereas I really want there to be multiple focuses in the SimCity world build that I'm doing here. And those focuses includes like offering gameplay that allows players to play in the suburbs, for example, or if they do prefer downtown living and urban settings, they have the whole SimCity downtown core to play with, or if they just wanted a trendier neighborhood, there's Old Town. So yeah, there's a lot of different play styles that I really tried to keep in mind when developing it, and so when it came to considering the expanding the grid, I actually decided not to. I just felt like it would have been too much of a focus on downtown living, and that's not the direction that I want to take my Sims 3 world build in. And I also want to do some rural building as well, and also mansions. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and it would just be too much of a focus. And even though I'm very confident with the capabilities of my computer per se, I am kind of wondering about the Create a World's limits in terms of lots and all of that. So I really just didn't want to, I didn't want to stretch those limits too far. But yeah, by surrounding it with water, it kind of helps to signal to myself that that this is the end for the downtown core, and that it'll be separated by water and whatnot, and likely it'll connect to the water that's under the bridge as well, making the downtown core an island in truth. But yeah, that was the idea there. And like I mentioned, this neighborhood really doesn't come alive until we actually get to the parking lots of it all. So the surrounding parking lots around the stadium is certainly something that I appreciate. I really loved how those turned out. Like those parking lot props from the Sims 3 University really are underused and underrated in my opinion, since they just add so much intrigue to the city. I go on to place some of those white fences, continuing it off of the white fence that surrounded the government campus. I felt like it's a nice way to kind of tie the two areas together. Plus, they're right next to each other, meaning that the stadium will be located directly south. I did decide, however, to keep the rocks on like the rocky slope on this side of the land and of the downtown core. As much as I love the sand on the water for the east side of the downtown area, I feel like it just reads as a little too beachy, and I didn't want the beach feel on this side. Otherwise, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to be ending up placing beach lots everywhere, which is not necessarily something that I want to do. But yeah, that was kind of the thought process behind this, is that instead of having to choose one or the other, I could just have both and just use them appropriately wherever I feel is necessary to use them in. So yeah, I still like the look of the rocks on the grass up on the slope and all that. It's just that I like the sand better, and I think it's just because I'm such a fan of the beach that I might be just experiencing a little bit of a design bias there. But if you have any suggestions on a better way to kind of make like a sloped natural retaining wall, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. Although I do want to avoid using actual rock props because that will eat up space in the game. I am curious to see like what kind of other design features are out there, and maybe I just need to review some more references and all that. But yeah, I was happy with the way it turned out at the end of the day. So I do also want to talk a little bit about the downtown core as well. In terms of the downtown core, I love the way that the Central Business District and the huge conglomeration of City Park lots really came together. I really enjoyed that, and how it kind of made a simple grid really unique. However, when it comes to developing the downtown core neighborhoods further, I am trying to save the middle for taller buildings like those late night shells that we are so accustomed to seeing that really builds the skylines. However, for unique neighborhoods like this, the stadium and the hospital, I have no problem just kind of adding onto it. Like, I always knew that this north-south boulevard that we see here, the western one at least, I was always going to add onto it, much like we added into Old Town and all of that. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind going forward with this Sims 3 Create a World Build series, is that the neighborhoods in the middle will the downtown core in the middle will likely be a lot taller, and I plan on putting in a lot more mid-rises around the downtown core, which is why we see the hospital and the stadium develop the way that it has, is because it's a nice introduction, it's a nice lead up into taller buildings. And that was a consideration that I had during this entire process, and that includes the Old Town development as well. I'm not putting single family homes in Old Town. It's all going to be older style buildings, of course, inspired by New Orleans, but it's all going to be more mid-rise density and all that. So buildings that are at least 3 or 4 floors high, if not taller, depending on the game's limits, I suppose. But yeah, the lots flanking, the lots surrounding the Sin City skylines, what was I trying to say there? The lots that are just outside of the downtown core grid are certainly, they are likely candidates for neighborhoods that will actually be more mid-rise density than anything else. And then once we get past that mid-rise, that's when we'll move into single family homes and some suburbs. And for the suburbs, I do plan to mix in like a little bit of row housing and some like small pockets of mid-density, but the suburbs is very much going to be all about that single family home living, single family house with a yard and quite a large lot as well. So yeah, that's kind of the plan with the neighborhoods here. Although I might split up the grid further in the downtown core, I will likely keep it to taller buildings and such. If I am going to be totally honest, I am kind of missing the edit in-game feature that I had blocked myself from going on that Sims 3 store purchase spree. But yeah, because a big reason about why these neighborhoods really come together is because of the buildings themselves, which seems so obvious. But I especially get that look, and I especially get that feeling when I look over at the SimCity Harbor, where we've actually got some completed buildings there. And it just makes the area come together so nice, and I am missing it terribly when it comes to this build, because even though I'm just laying down a couple of parking lots, I'm doing a little bit of landscaping for the hospital and the stadium land masses, they really won't start to come alive, and they won't really feel like an actual place and destination until I get the buildings actually constructed and created. And I am planning to take a look at each of the lots more than just copying and pasting them into the thing. I am planning to do quite a bit more work, especially with the hospital. The hospital building itself is actually quite small, and I gave it a 64 by 64 lot for a reason, and that's just so that I can get creative with it, whether I want to create some sort of a garden to surround it, or if there's something else that I might want to add in, like maybe there's some sort of a healing center or like a yoga garden that I can add in with the hospital. I'm a little ways away out before being able to actually edit in game, since I have to export the world first. But if you have any ideas about what kind of different things I should add to the stadium or to the hospital, feel free to leave a comment below, and I will certainly look into incorporating them whenever I do get around to doing it. And yeah, when it comes to the stadium, I am I am going to copy and paste pretty much the Starlight Shores one from the Showtime expansion pack. I think I explained it before, but I do love the way that it looks, first of all. Secondly, I also love the way that it functions because I'm not great at building large venues. They're quite complicated in terms of the unique objects that you have to place. And I've created live venues and like private venues before, but when it comes to the large venues, there's some extra steps in there that just kind of confuses me. And if I've already got a lot that I enjoy, then I'm just going to place it in there and do the edits that I need to do to really make it match the rest of SimCity. I am going to wrap up this episode just with some simple detailing around the stadium and the hospital, just mostly fidgeting with the street lights, if I'm going to be completely honest, as you've been watching me do on screen as of right now. I did also want to kind of mention that these downtown neighborhoods are really going to come together really quickly. It's just a couple of simple road layout adjustments, and then I just have to place down some lots in there. So there isn't a whole lot that I need to be doing in order to get these neighborhoods to come together and to make them ready for me to actually start building upon. So the real like create a world finessing that's going to occur is when we actually start to move into the suburbs, which at this point I predict will be pretty soon, since I've only got a couple of neighborhoods that I want to put into the downtown, including like a mixed use transitional neighborhood, as well as like a low income or mixed income neighborhood. So I've really only got like a couple of things more that I want to do before actually moving on to the suburbs. And so that's going to be really where most of the excitement is going to come across, because we're going to finally cross the suspension bridge southwards, and it'll start to come together, and you'll be able to see really how downtown like downtown SimCity relates to the rest of the region that I'm looking to develop. And I've been giving you guys some shots this whole time, but there's still a lot of land to still build upon. So when I finally get to the rural builds, that's when things are going to be a lot more spaced out and stuff. So I'm very excited for all of that for you guys. Anyways, I just wanted to leave that here for now. In the next episode, what we're gonna actually do is we're gonna go back and we're gonna do some minor editing. We're just gonna kind of bring things together just a little bit more. So we're not moving on to a new neighborhood next episode. We're just doing some fine tuning and some refreshing updates for that. At this time, I just want to thank you again for watching. If you have enjoyed the SimCity Sims 3 Create a World build series that I've got going on, and I dare you to say that 5 times fast, then feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe if you've been enjoying this series so far. Again, I just want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.